This is Basic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
I remember when I showed them the finished product, they said, "That's great, except the monkey is too realistic. It's too scary. Kids will be scared of that monkey." That was back in the day when they were so desperate for programmers. They were taking anybody that seemed like they might be smart enough to learn how to do it, and then you learned on the job.
I'm Kevin Savitz, and this is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. David Kano wrote the Hex-A-Bug debugger, which was published by Atari Program Exchange. He also wrote two educational software titles for the Atari, Monkey See, Monkey Spell, and Don't Shoot That Word, which were both published by Hayden Software. This interview was conducted March 24th, 2015. We'll start with Hex-A-Bug. You wrote Hex-A-Bug for APX. Tell me from the beginning how you got started with Atari and why did you feel that this program was needed, and tell me the story.
I got my Atari and I wanted to write graphical programs for it, interactive games and such. And my training up to that point had been on the job at a company called ATEX. It was a proprietary operating system, proprietary everything pretty much, based on PDP-11s. And so at work we had a pretty reasonable debugger for that day, for debugging machine code and assembly code, and mostly.
What kind of stuff were you working on?
Well, I was actually using Pascal, writing applications that placed ads on a newspaper page, because their main customers were newspapers and magazines. And so when we used the debugger for a Pascal program, it wasn't as slick because it wasn't really as savvy to the source code relationship to the code that we're actually debugging, because it was really an assembly language debugger. But in any case, it was better than nothing. And I'm trying to remember how we related the two. Maybe there was like a decompiler or something so that we could see the source code. But it wasn't the code with your comments in it and everything. It was, But in any case, when I got onto the Atari and I wanted to write, and at that time I had left my job because I was actually a windsurfing bum first and foremost. And my job was encroaching on my windsurfing time too much. So when they wouldn't give me a reduced work week, I wanted to work my work week in 4 days and work 10 hours a day instead of 5 days. And they said no to that, so I quit. And I decided I would write games for the Atari and see if I could make it as a software author and be a windsurfing bum at the same time on Block Island. So I moved out to Block Island, Rhode Island, and I started messing around with my Atari, and I discovered that, actually, you know what, I think maybe going out to Block Island might have happened after I already wrote Hex-A-Bug. Yeah, it did. The first project I did was Hex-A-Bug, and that was in the winter, so I didn't want to go to I didn't want to go to Block Island in the winter. Anyway, but the reason was it just wasn't a good debugger that I could find. That, as far as I could tell, for assembly language programming, which I needed to do the interactive work that I wanted to do, at least I felt I did, I don't think there was a debugger. So I was spoiled at work having kind of a reasonable debugger, and I figured if there isn't one, then maybe I can even sell it, and at least I'll use it myself. So I dove into the heart of the Atari maybe more than I might have even needed to, because I was writing debugger. And yeah, it was an interesting first project. because the reason I liked the Atari was all the, back then, neat ways that you could get the video processor to do a lot of the work for you so that the poor little 6502 wouldn't, would be able to make a much better video game than it would have been able to with smooth scrolling and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing the debugger, I actually used some of those features in the debugger, even though it wasn't an animated game, but so I guess the displays had smooth horizontal scrolling or something like that. Have you used Hex-A-Bug?
I've looked. I couldn't really figure it out. I've tried to play with it, and I couldn't find a manual online, first of all, and then I tried to figure it out, and it looks complicated.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a programmer's tool, and it's for. It's funny about the manual. I'm sure there was one,
mm-hmm.
but I don't even recall exactly what format it was in electronically. I didn't really sell very many copies of that through APX. I don't think there were enough people doing assembly code programming that wanted a debugger.
Mm-hmm.
I think people were a lot of basic programmers at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people were doing the assembly language programming without a debugger exactly. But it didn't really sell particularly well. But the nice thing was I got an award for it
mm-hmm.
through APX that year. I think it was the best, tool of the year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Programmer's tool or something like that. So that was nice, and it looks nice on the resume when I go to get a publisher that might pre-buy my software that I really wanted to develop using Hex-A-Bug.
How did you find out that you won the award? Was there any pomp and circumstance, or was it just, hey, David, you're getting...
Well, they didn't fly me to California. No, I think they called. I think they called me on the phone and
mm-hmm.
let me know that way. I don't really remember exactly, but I think they sent me out some kind of little plaque or something.
Yeah, there's no extra cash prize or anything?
Well, the thing is, I applied to have it sold through APX,
right.
And so they had my contact. That's why I was in the running,
right?
To win the award. So, yeah, I don't remember exactly how they contacted me.
You said it didn't sell very well. Give me a sense of how well it didn't sell. I mean, did you sell dozens?
I don't remember, honestly. I have no memory of how many copies it sold. I just know it wasn't significant enough to make any money off of, per se. I spent a really intensive couple of weeks writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just obsessive programming into the night kind of thing. And then I don't think I worked on any of my other projects as intensively as I did that one. Then I wrote some educational games.
Yeah, tell me about those.
Hayden Software. Did you find those?
I haven't looked yet.
There's two educational games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, what are they called?
Monkey See, Monkey Spell.
Yes.
And Don't Shoot That Word. According to your...
There you go. So those are the two from Hayden, I think.
Mm-hmm. So
that was cool because of Hex-A-Bug and because they were a company getting into Atari, they thought they wanted to be Atari publishers. I guess they had already done some publishing in other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Commodore, I guess, if I can remember right.
You approach Hayden and say, I want to write some educational software, or did you have already developed them by the time you approached them?
I think they even found me because of the Hex-A-Bug thing. And they contacted me. So that was even better. And I told them I wanted to do educational games, and we bounced around some ideas about what educational games might be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the idea for Monkey See, Monkey Spell, I think, was the first one. And they said, great, sounds like a good idea. And so they actually gave me like a $5,000 advance against royalties to write software for them. And so I wrote that first one. One of the most memorable things was I did all the graphics. I created the monkey that was going to be used to climb around in a tree and find the letters that you need to spell the word. And it basically just displays a picture, and then you spell the word, you try to spell the word for that picture. Very beginning spelling. Probably tree and house and dog and things like that. And I remember when I showed them the finished product, they said, that's great, except the monkey is too realistic. It's too scary. Kids will be scared of that monkey. Can't you make it more like an animated anthropomorphized monkey that would have a friendlier face and be cuddly or something? And I said, well, but I manually input every bit of that monkey and manually wrote the code to make that particular shape monkey walk. And it's going to be a pant load of work for me to change. Even if you give me the image of the monkey you want, it's going to be a huge amount of work for me to change that monkey. And they said, oh, but we argued back and forth about it quite a bit, actually. But I basically refused because it was going to be way too much work. And they probably wouldn't have cared if the thing just was the same image and just bounced along on there. It didn't even look like it was walking. But I was into it being more realistic. So the legs moved as it went up the branch, along the branch and stuff like that. And I actually had my uncle, who's an artist, help me to make it look like a monkey, and that's probably why it looked a little bit too realistic for the publisher. So in retrospect, I realized if I had just vetted the image before I started animating it, it would have been smarter, but oh well. Then when they ported it, they changed it to a kind of a different kind of fur-looking, not realistic monkey for the Apple or whatever other program. I think it was Commodore or Apple or both that they ported it to.
And then you did Don't Shoot That Word next.
Right. Yeah. And that one I don't think they had any major conflicts with. That was a simpler program. And I might be getting it backwards, which one I did first. I'm not sure.
They're both 1983, so I can't help you there.
Yeah, they were the same year. Oh, one of the reasons they liked the idea for the Monkey See, Monkey Spell one is they were enamored of the smooth scrolling that you could do with Atari, and so when the monkey climbed up the tree smooth scrolled down as the monkey scrolled up, kind of like the camera's panning up to follow the monkey as it climbed up, things like that. They thought that was neat, to have that as part of the feature of the program, or the way the user interface would work. And I guess it makes the letters bigger so you can find them more easily or something. But the Don't Shoot That Word, I think it was actually the better game in terms of it being more engaging as a video game, because it was a fast action game. The other one, I can't remember if there was a timer that you're racing against to get the next letter before the time ran out or something. Oh, I think I remember now. I think that monkey's eating a banana as it walks, and if it runs out of banana before you get the next letter picked for the word you're spelling, then the monkey falls out of the tree and you have to go to the next banana. And if you run out of bananas once you're out of bananas, then you see how many words you've spelled to see what your score is, something like that. Yeah, I think that's right. It was starting to come back to me. So it was still a fast action game, supposedly. But with the other one, the words are kind of falling down the screen, and you had to shoot all the words except for the word that matched the word that you were trying to read. I let go of my Atari hardware a long time ago, so
Yeah.
I haven't seen my own things running for a long time.
Did they sell? Did you earn out your advance?
Actually, I don't think they ever did. I mean, they sold somewhat, but they never sold more than my advance. So I think Hayden lost some money on it.
Yeah. And then why didn't you do more?
What happened after that? Well, my life story is a little bit long at that point. I guess I wasn't making enough money. So, after those didn't sell, the $5,000 didn't go that far. So, since I was a windsurfing bum, I actually moved to Hawaii. And I thought I'd get a programming job out in Hawaii. So I did some interviewing on Hawaii, but I didn't ever get an offer out there. And it's kind of complicated. I had a girlfriend interest in Boston, and I just didn't end up staying in Hawaii that long. Yeah, in the end, I ended up going back to ATEX, the company that I had quit from. They still needed help. And I was able to... I think it went back as a contractor, though. The software authoring thing was a nice idea, but it never really flew financially.
Yeah.
I actually made almost as much money at my first and only professional windsurfing event that summer, because I won a couple of events at the windsurfing event, and it was great because I just rode my motorcycle to this event. The manufacturer of the boards was supplying all the equipment for the event. So all I had to take is my wetsuit and my harness. And it was just, I'd never gone to a professional event before. They were just trying to get people to go to it so that we'd sail their boards so they could try to break into the market, basically. Because it was like a one company sport for a long time. And, BIC wanted to get into it, and they did. And this was just one of their ways of getting into it. But anyway, I paid my credit card debt off with that, not with any money from software.
Oh well.
But it was fun. It was a fun summer. I have fond memories of being out on Block Island working on these games, and when the wind came up, I'd go windsurfing. If the wind was low, I'd work on the games.
Yes.
Sometimes. And had a tiny little office that my friend rented me, and a single bedroom in a boarding house with no access to the kitchen. So I'd cook my simple meals in my office with like a hot plate or something. So
Nice.
But it was fun. Roughing it, but fun. So I don't really remember too much more about Atari. It wasn't actually my first computer. I had a Sorcerer before that. Do you know the Sorcerer?
The XCD Sorcerer, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Z80 based CPM operating system based machine. Had a ROM cartridge, which was kind of standard for the home machines back then. But you could also get like a whole rack system that it could hook into. I didn't get one, but you could get a CPM, or I forget what the backplane standard was. But it was more of a, given that it was CPM, it was a little bit kind of more of an industrial operating system kind of thing, but it was designed for home use. The thing about that was, compared to the Atari, it actually had a lot more characters on the screen than the Atari did. I had this character mode. Wasn't as good for graphics. That's why I got into the Atari instead. But I learned how to program on the Sorcerer first, both in BASIC and in Z80 assembler. And then that's how I got my first programming job, actually, was the home projects I did on my Sorcerer went onto my resume. And I actually got a programming job based on that because I had no programming degree. It was all totally self-taught. That was back in the day when they were so desperate for programmers, they were taking anybody that seemed like they might be smart enough to learn how to do it.
Right.
And then you learned on the job. I didn't know Pascal when I started my first job. I just spent the first couple of weeks writing little simple programs in Pascal to learn the language. And then I dove into the actual code, a couple of weeks later. So nowadays, companies don't like to spend that much time training their employees, or they're worried that an employee won't learn fast enough and be productive soon enough. So it's hard to get jobs based on that anymore.
Yeah. Did you use Hex-A-Bug to develop to work on your other two programs that you made?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was worth all the effort was paid off for you then.
Yeah. I was glad I had it, definitely, and it was also the door opener to get that $5,000 advance.
Yeah. Cool.
Which was all the money I was going to make as a programmer, as a software author.
If you could send a message to the Atari community that still exists, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
I guess it's fun to know that they're still out there, and hope some people are still using my programs. It's strange to imagine that might be true. I guess it's all freeware by now. But,
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't mind now, but it's kind of funny. Years later, I made another attempt to be a software author, but I was writing on a DOS platform at that point, a program to help activists do the first version of email and conferencing, basically group communication, like in the day when everybody was on dial-up modems and they charged per minute with for your internet connection on the dial-up, and so people wanted to get on, get their work done, and get off. My hope was to create something that would be easier to learn, so more activists would want to get online and communicate with each other more frequently and more efficiently, so that activists, because the whole system was designed for peace activists and environmentalists and like that. And so I was hoping that the program that I was writing would help further causes that I believed in. And I think it did, actually, but I didn't make any money on that one either. I think that one, there was a fair amount of piracy going on. And because I sold it as a honor system. It wasn't locked, so it was freeware / pay after you've tried it kind of thing. But if you didn't get around to paying, or you didn't decide you weren't going to pay, then you get to use it anyway, And I didn't mind if some people did that, but I was kind of hoping more people would like it and pay me. And it actually went to Russia, which I was excited about. I found out that they were using it. Peace activists in the USSR were using it.
Wow.
And that almost made the whole thing worth it to me, because I wanted peace activists around the world to communicate with each other better. And they especially couldn't afford a lot of online time. So the ease of use and the fact that it was an offline reader was great for them, because they could go on, get the messages, and come back off, and then do everything offline. Get their messages ready to send, and then go back online just to send them. So it was a whole different era.
Yeah, it was.
But it was pretty rewarding in some ways, just not financially.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the Atari. I hope you have fun with my programs, or somebody is.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.